Diamonds became popular in the United States in the early 1920s when De Beers, then the largest producer of diamonds worldwide, realized that the American market is the ultimate market for diamonds.
Picture this. You're at an auction in Geneva in 2024, and a single watch just sold for $6.2 million. No diamonds, no bling, no iced-out bezel, just a plain stainless steel Patek Philippe that looks like something your accountant would wear. Meanwhile, across town, some guy is trying to flip his fully diamond-encrusted Rolex and can't find a single serious buyer. That moment tells you everything you need to know about how money actually works. Here's a stat that's going to mess with your head. The average diamond watch loses between 50 and 75% of its value the second you walk out of the store. Not over 10 years, not 5 years, the moment you step outside. We're talking about a piece you paid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for. Now worth maybe 15 grand to a reseller. Meanwhile, a plain Patek Nautilus that retails for $40,000 is selling on the gray market for $120,000. No diamonds, just steel and engineering. So why does this keep happening? Why are the people with the least money the ones buying the most diamonds, while the people worth billions are wearing the simplest watches on the market? The answer reveals something fascinating about how wealth is actually displayed, and how the entire diamond watch industry is built on one of the most brilliant marketing deceptions in human history. By the mid-20th century, diamonds had a problem. They weren't actually that rare. Mines in South Africa, Botswana, and Russia were pulling millions of carats out of the ground every single year. The supply was enormous, but one company, De Beers, understood something powerful. Scarcity is a feeling, not always a fact. I like to think of it this way. Imagine if McDonald's convinced the entire world that a Big Mac was a once-in-a-lifetime experience, and that giving someone a Big Mac was the ultimate romantic gesture. That sounds insane, right? But that is almost exactly what De Beers pulled off with diamonds. Their 1947 campaign, "A Diamond is Forever," didn't just sell rings. It rewired how an entire civilization thought about love, commitment, and status. And it worked so well that by the time the watch industry caught on, diamonds had become the universal signal for wealth, whether you actually had any or not. This meant something very specific for real money. When something becomes accessible to everyone, it stops meaning what it used to mean, and the ultra-wealthy understood that before anyone else did. Enter Richard Mille, the French watchmaker who started his brand in 2001 with a single philosophy: make a watch so technically extraordinary that it doesn't need diamonds to justify its price. His watches look like something designed for a space mission: exposed movement, carbon fiber, titanium. They start at $100,000 and go up from there. Richard once said something that stuck with me. He talked about how his clients, Formula One drivers, professional athletes, billionaires, needed a watch that could survive a 200-mile-per-hour crash. A diamond bezel shatters. A tourbillon movement inside a carbon case doesn't. That was the philosophy he built an empire on. What if the most expensive watch in the world looked like a tool? That was the question Richard Mille answered, and the answer changed the luxury market forever. Here's what actually makes a watch expensive at the top level, and it has almost nothing to do with diamonds. The movement is everything. A hand-assembled tourbillon, a complication designed to cancel out the effect of gravity on timekeeping, can take a master watchmaker over 1,000 hours to build. 1,000 hours! That's 6 months of full-time labor on a mechanism smaller than your thumbnail. That's why a Patek Philippe Grand Complication costs what it costs. You are paying for human time at the highest level of precision skill on Earth. Diamond watches, on the other hand, are built on a completely different economic logic. The watch itself is often a standard production movement. Reliable, clean, nothing extraordinary. Then, a setter comes in and places stones into the case. The dial, the bracelet. The labor is skilled, no question. But what you're paying for isn't engineering. You're paying for appearance. And appearance, in the luxury world, is the first thing that loses value. Here's the deeper problem. The diamonds used in most commercial watch settings are what the trade calls melee stones. Small, middle-of-the-road quality that would never pass as investment-grade gems. If you stripped every diamond off a heavily iced watch and tried to sell those stones loose, you might recover $20 to $50 total. Not per stone, total. The stones are functionally decorative, not valuable as individual assets. This creates a brutal math situation. You paid a massive retail markup for stones that carry no real resale value on a watch that was already going to depreciate 30% the moment you bought it. Layer those two depreciations on top of each other, and you can see exactly why diamond watches hit the secondary market so hard. And here's something the brands will never tell you. When a luxury house like Rolex or Cartier sets a watch with diamonds from the factory, the stones they select are not the same caliber as investment-grade gems. They're chosen for visual consistency and sparkle under a showroom light, certification, rarity, color grade. Those factors take a backseat to aesthetics. You're essentially buying the look of a diamond, not the asset value of one. The retail price doesn't reflect that distinction. The resale market absolutely does. When diamond watches first became popular as status symbols through hip-hop culture in the late 90s and early 2000s, the market logic made sense for that moment. Diamonds were visibility. They were proof of arrival. They communicated success in a way that a plain Nautilus simply couldn't, at least not to the audience that mattered at the time. But like many luxury categories, the market shifted underneath the product. As diamond watches became more accessible, mass-produced versions hitting department stores, entry-level brands offering iced bezels for $2,000, the signal changed. The same item that once communicated extreme wealth began communicating something different entirely. Trendy, flashy, maybe not the real thing. Those who study how status symbols work call this the accessibility trap. The moment a status signal reaches a broad enough audience, the people who originally used it to signal status abandon it entirely. They move upstream toward something rarer, more technical, less understood by the general public. And that is precisely what happened in the watch world. The billionaires moved to Patek, they moved to A. Lange and Sona. They moved to FP Journe. Brands most people have never heard of. Watches that require some education to even understand why they're special. That exclusivity through complexity is exactly what the diamond watch world simply cannot offer. The philosophy of understated wealth has only gotten stronger over time. In 2006, the term stealth wealth started appearing in financial and fashion media to describe how the ultra-rich were deliberately dressing down. In 2015, researchers studying the consumer behavior of households worth over $30 million found that the wealthiest bracket actually spent significantly less on visible luxury goods than households in the 10 to 30 million range. The people with the most money were the least interested in showing it. Today, the pre-owned luxury watch market tells the whole story. The Rolex Submariner, no diamonds, stainless steel, clean design, consistently resells above retail. The Patek Nautilus in steel regularly trades at 2 to 3 times its original price. Meanwhile, diamond-set versions of comparable watches sit on gray market platforms for months, sometimes discounted 30 or 40% below what the original buyer paid. There's a reason for that gap, and it goes beyond just preference. The collector market runs on knowledge. People who buy serious horology understand the move, the history, the reference number. They are not buying a feeling. They're buying a documented, verifiable asset. Diamond watches don't have that same collector infrastructure behind them. Nobody is writing auction catalog essays about the craftsmanship of a stone-set dial. That absence of collector depth is exactly why the resale floor stays so low. The numbers don't lie. The market votes every single day, and it votes against diamonds. For me, the fascinating thing about all of this isn't really about watches. It's about what we think wealth looks like versus what it actually is. Diamond watches embody a very specific philosophy, the philosophy of performing success for an outside audience. It's not about what you have. It's about making sure other people can see what you have. And there's nothing wrong with that. Self-expression is real, but it comes at a financial cost that most people buying these watches don't fully understand until they try to sell. The philosophy of the plain steel Patek or the Richard Mille is the opposite. It's saying, I understand something you don't yet. I don't need you to recognize this watch. I know what it is. That shift from external validation to internal understanding is what separates the diamond market from the collector market. And it's not a coincidence that the collector market holds its value while the diamond market collapses. It's like the difference between a custom Ferrari with neon paint versus a matte black sleeper car with a modified engine. One is built to be seen, the other is built to be felt. And in the long run, the one built to be felt is always worth more. I love this story because it's not really about watches at all. It's about the gap between the appearance of wealth and the mechanics of wealth. Diamond watches are sold as a symbol of having made it, but the people who have actually made it aren't buying them. They're buying complications. They're buying heritage. They're buying things that require knowledge to appreciate, not just eyes to see. This is something the entire luxury goods industry is built on, and most consumers only figure it out after taking the loss. The market teaches you the lesson the hard way. The next time you see someone dripped out in a fully iced watch, I'm not saying they're broke. Some people genuinely love the aesthetic and can afford the depreciation without blinking. But statistically, there is an extremely good chance that watch is now worth half of what they paid for it, while the guy next to them in the plain steel Daytona is quietly sitting on an appreciating asset. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever bought a diamond watch, or do you stay away from them for exactly these reasons? Drop it in the comments below. And if you want to go even deeper on how the luxury watch market really works, who's flipping, who's losing, and what the gray market actually looks like right now, make sure you're subscribed because that video is coming very soon. We'll see you in the next one.